Considering the dominant focus on national security and economic indicators, I think it's fair to say that this federal election campaign has oriented around risk aversion and occasionally fear, rather than reform and opportunity. Is it unrealistic to have hoped for anything different?
I want to get everybody's quick thoughts on this. Cathy, McGowan, what's happened to reform?
Ben, and just for the listeners at home, there's a really young audience here tonight, and I just want to say to you young people particularly, yes. And you're not, if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to get the same result. And that's one of the reasons why in these 23 plus electorates, so many young people are getting behind their independence and saying, I just want someone with a vision, someone who's actually going to represent me and my generation and act on it. And it's no surprise that climate change comes to the fore at all. It's no surprise that integrity is there. And there's lots of other issues coming out. So I say yes, but the call is to you. You have to vote for it. If you vote the same way, you get the same result. So that's what's happening around Australia. People have actually realised that democracy is not a spectator sport. You actually got to dive in and you've got to do something different. You've actually got to engage with politics and make a really clear decision. And it's not just the independents. It's looking at your vote in a serious way in the Senate.
Well,
so I'll just finish on this. To the young people here tonight, pay particular attention to the vision of the parties. Are they actually making Australia the place you want to be? On Aboriginal, on the Uluru Statement, for example, what are they doing in terms of the Republic to the future governance of this country? Like, we haven't even talked about that. And the Queen's birthday, you know, she's coming up. Like, she's not going to be there for much longer. So what's the country going to do then? Do we just fall in behind Charlie?
Well,
like, I don't know. But it's no, what I'm saying is...
We've opened up a few issues here that unfortunately we don't have time for.
But what Ben's saying is we haven't got the discussion about the vision.
All right, now, James Paterson, Coalition's hoping for a fourth term in government. To Ben's question, what are the reforms? What's one big reform you'd want to deliver in a fourth term?
Well, I think we've talked about some of those big reforms tonight, and they're competing plans from the Labor Party and the Liberal Party about how to improve housing affordability. They want the government to be a co-owner with you in your home. We want you to own your own home using your own money. That's a big reform idea.
That's your big reform idea?
But to your point about the focus on other issues, I mean, the national security risks facing this country, unfortunately, are very real, and we would be doing you and your generation a disservice if we weren't being honest with you about that. These are the most uncertain strategic times that Australia has been in since the 1930s, and I seriously worry about whether or not we'll be able to pass on the free, prosperous, democratic country we have to future generations if we don't muscle up and confront those challenges. And I think you deserve to know about that and to make an informed choice about it at the ballot box.
Josh Burns, reform for you. Can you cite for us the big reforms that Labor would like to deliver?
Ben, when you think about the sort of work experience that people are going to have in this country, you know, the 40 years, what have you got to show for it? Young people in Australia going into the working place, and they're going into insecure work, they're going into casualised work, their wages are stagnant, housing is less affordable. What have you got to show for your 40 years of contributing to this country? You know, we need to change that. And the way we change that is by making more jobs more secure and a pathway to permanency. We also need to tackle climate change. We need to transition. Like, we are going to be the generation that does this, mate. We are going to be the ones that do this. We're going to transition from fossil fuels to renewable technology. It's going to be us, and it's going to be amazing, and we're going to make a lot of money on the way. And finally, our democracy. Like, we have to protect our democracy and lift the standards of politics in this country. They've had their turn, right? Like, they've had 10 years. It's our time. Let's change the government and let's do it for our country.
All right, Gigi, what sort of reform would you have liked to have heard from the two?
Oh, boy. I mean, it's been 2 years of propaganda and treating everybody like imbeciles. I think that what we would really like to see is a return to happy, free, joyful Australia, get rid of all the freedom restrictions that we've seen in the last 2 years, including all the mandates and the coercion and the border closures and the testing and the tracking and the tracing and the masking. All that stuff's got to go. It doesn't help on net And so it's not worth it. The government still has not defended it except by these 40,000 figures that come out of a computer box. And it hasn't done a cost-benefit analysis. You shouldn't trust them. So I think we should see more freedom. We should see more critical thought. I'd like to see some reform in education. I'd like to see universal basic childcare. And I'd like to see more support for Australia being a strong country that allows its businesses and its people to have freedom and commits to not ever taking it away.
Peter Hartcher, I'm going to give you the final word here. And coming back to Ben's question, has reform become too hard? Are we too risk averse now, and particularly in this campaign?
Australia's traditional enemy is complacency, and that's an enemy that never gives up, and we can't give up. The enemy at the moment is winning, so we have to fight a bit harder. And that especially means your generation too.